episode of Global Nashville with Karl Dean. I'm Patrick Ryan, President of the Tennessee World Affairs Council. This evening, former Nashville Mayor Karl Dean will talk with Kate Burke, Chief Operating Officer of AllianceBernstein. Good evening and welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Pat. Good to see you.
Good to see you. In January, Governor Bill Lee announced AllianceBernstein's expansion in Tennessee, saying AB's new global headquarters is one of Tennessee's most consequential economic development wins in recent years. The creation of hundreds of quality jobs will provide tremendous benefits to the entire Middle Tennessee region. The expansion brings AB's planned investment in Nashville to more than $80 million. In coming months, AB will be moving into the Fifth+Broadway development. AllianceBernstein is an asset management and research firm with a unique combination of expertise, innovative solutions, and global reach. They attract the industry's best talent, and they are global. AB has approximately $623 billion in assets under management, nearly 3,800 employees, and offices in 25 countries. At the January announcement, TNECD Commissioner Bob Rolfe said, quote, "It's hard to overstate how significant AB's commitment to Nashville is for our state. Once fully operational, AB will have more than 1,250 employees here in Middle Tennessee, making it one of downtown Nashville's largest employers." He said, "We're incredibly honored that a company of this caliber has so quickly established deep roots in Tennessee and continues to create extremely well-paying and high-quality jobs in Nashville." Kate Burke is the Chief Operating Officer of AB, responsible for overseeing legal, compliance, corporate communications, human capital, corporate and information security, operations, and technology. She was previously Chief Administrative Officer, and prior to that, Head of Human Capital and Chief Talent Officer. Burke has more than 2 decades of financial services and consulting industry experience. She joined Bernstein Research in 2004 in institutional sales, where she rose to Senior Vice President and Managing Director, overseeing institutional sales teams in the Midwest, New York, and Canada. Prior to joining the firm, Burke was a manager at A.T. Kearney, where she led client cross-divisional organizational development programs. She holds a BA in economics from the College of the Holy Cross and an MBA from the Kellogg School of Management at Northwestern University. Mayor Dean, we're looking forward to this evening's conversation.
Well, thank you, Pat, and Kate. Welcome. I'm glad you could be with us tonight. And I didn't realize you were a Crusader.
I am.
I have ties to Worcester, Massachusetts. No, I have ties to Worcester, Massachusetts, and I have been to Holy Cross football games, and it's a great school. So that's interesting.
It is a great. My nephew's going to play D1 baseball there. Hopefully next year if all goes well. So it has nothing to do with my husband and I. He likes my husband's also a Crusader. He liked it independently, but yeah, we have very fond memories of our time on the Hill.
Good. Well, for those, we're talking about Holy Cross, which is in Worcester, Massachusetts, a great Jesuit school, and well, it's good to hear about it. So AllianceBernstein, everything Pat said, it was true, and what the governor has said and others have said, this was a really big deal for Nashville and for Tennessee. What is AllianceBernstein? What do you do? And how many people are coming to Nashville?
Well, look, it's a really big deal for us. It was not an easy decision to decide to move our headquarters out of New York, which is where we were founded, over 30 years ago, and make the decision to move to Nashville. But let me start with AllianceBernstein. So AllianceBernstein is an asset manager, as well as a private wealth firm. And then we also have something called Bernstein Research, which is research analysts who write about public companies. We have other people at other firms who cover AllianceBernstein as a publicly traded company, and provide research advice, actually to some of AB's, to both AllianceBernstein and to some of our competitors in the asset management space. So as an asset manager, and I'll just do a really high level, like 101, because I'm from Minnesota originally, and I have to tell you, my exposure to asset management or the finance world was like, I was a bank teller. Like, that's how I first got my first exposure to, I was like, I want to work in finance. And I got my first job as a bank teller. And then I realized that there was like a lot more to it, and started to get really interested in the markets. But AllianceBernstein, as an asset manager, we essentially have clients that could be institutional, like pension funds, or retail clients, like you could buy an AllianceBernstein mutual fund through your advisor. And they're global and these clients are global in nature. So we have a global client base, and then we have a global product set. And our products tend to be in 4 different categories. There's fixed income, so both credit and currency. You've got multi-asset, which is kind of a mix of everything, which is fixed income and equities, and more of an asset allocation type of approach. And then equities is, I think, what most people think about when they think of, well, it's the S&P 500, it's the stock market. And we invest in an array of products, from large cap growth to emerging market products, to a global value product. And so those are portfolio managers who are choosing companies around the globe to put into their portfolio to try to establish a return on individual investments. And then we have alternatives, which can be anything from, we have a hedge fund in-house to a European credit, real estate, and other kinds of private alternatives. It's basically like establishing credit. We do middle market lending, and all of these are different products that we sell then through our global distribution channel, which is why we're in 26 countries, because we have clients in all of those.
And what you're moving to Nashville is your headquarters?
Yeah, our headquarters was moving to Nashville. We made a decision that moving the headquarters was in the best interest of the firm, because you want to have, what we didn't want to do is have it be simply like a second office, or view it. Our culture is one where we view us as one firm, one culture. And by moving the headquarters, we knew we would also be able to bring investment talent eventually down here, certainly distribution and sales talent, and then many of the corporate functions will be here. And we wanted to make it our home. I mean, that was our goal, is to say we want to reestablish our footprint, and Nashville was a very appealing. Ultimately, we did a long search, and Nashville, for a variety of reasons, was the winner, the most appealing one.
Right decision. And how many people will you bring in to Nashville?
So we're going to have out of the 3,800 global employees, probably about 2,500 or so are US based, and half of that, about 1,250, will be in Nashville ultimately. But that's a combination of both people moving down, so somewhere probably, I think we have about 250 to 300 that have already committed, or have already moved, or have committed to move. And then we've hired so far locally and in the region, probably about 400 or so. So we're a little over 750 today. And that was slowed down a little bit by the
COVID.
Our pace this year slowed down a little bit globally.
Great. And so you're going to be at Fifth and Broad? Is where you are located?
Yes.
Well, you're right in the middle of everything. That's a wonderful place to be. So this is the Tennessee World Affairs Council, and obviously from just what we've talked about so far, you folks are all over the world, 26 countries, and offices in a variety of major cities. Any hesitation about Nashville when it came to the idea of conducting international business out of the middle of the country?
No, I mean, look, no, I mean, one, technology today is an enabler, so you really can work from almost anywhere. I think that when you think about finance, everyone tends to think of it as being large city centers like a New York City or a London or a Singapore or a Hong Kong. And that's true. There's certainly major firms in that area, but asset managers also tend to be all over the country. And some of our competitors are in different cities all over the world and in the United States. And what gave us confidence about Nashville was really the talent pool. So we'd spent a lot of time, as you can imagine, we started with a list of over 30 cities, and being a research shop, we first tried to do a quantitative review where we scored all the cities based on everything from the climate to travel. I would say, for example, the airport, the first direct flight to London out of Nashville, that improved your quantitative score. So and things like time zone, like because we have offices in Hong Kong, when we want to do a global call, being aware of the time difference between Europe, the US, and Asia region, you don't want to go, if you go too far west, you can make it's more challenging to have calls with Europe at the same time. East, as we were on the East Coast, that was sort of the middle ground where you could have a 12-hour difference. And so going one hour west to Central Time, we knew was going to be doable from our ability to do these kinds of calls globally. And then again, it came back to the talent, and we spent a lot of time. There's two things I would say that we spent a lot of time looking at, and in all of the cities, and where Nashville really stood out. One was around the inclusivity of the city. We knew we were going to ask a lot of AllianceBernstein employees to potentially move to Nashville as part of it. And so we have a very diverse employee base, and we wanted to make sure we chose a city where we thought they would feel welcome, and that they could find a community and their faith, and find and be able to enter in and feel comfortable quickly. And there's no doubt Nashville is an incredibly welcoming city. The stories we've heard from employees that have moved here about the welcoming of their neighbors and the welcoming of the community overall have really, I think, actually were particularly powerful early on as we were convincing and talking to people about making the move. The stories that were coming back to New York just about the welcome in Nashville were really powerful in getting people to think about coming. And then separately was the talent pool. We knew not everyone was going to move. And so we spent a lot of time looking at the university system in the region and the type of talent that was available. And we had a lot of confidence that we would be able to build strong relationships with the universities in the area and be able to be really a top talent provider, an option for people in the Tennessee region and in the Southeast to be able to work in finance in a firm that we think is, really unique and special in terms of in terms of our culture and our global work. But we like to say it's global in nature, but familial and family oriented in our culture. Right. And so it fits very well, I think, into how Nashville actually as a city is perceived in a lot of ways. There's so much global influence here, but it still feels very much, and as a newcomer, maybe you've been here much longer, so you can talk about how the city has evolved. It certainly still is very neighborly, welcoming, sort of family-oriented, friendly city, and so that's really appealing to us.
Well, when I came here over 30 years ago, I think the thing that struck me the most is it's the friendliest place I ever have been, and I think it remains that way despite growth and whatever. So the airport, the talent, the universities, the weather. I mean, temperate weather. I guess if you're coming from the north, this is good. What's been the biggest change for you living in the South?
Hook up at school, picking my kids up. No.
Yeah.
No. What's been the biggest change? Look, I think it's been Actually, it has been driving. I moved out of Manhattan, and so public transportation was something I did. We really leveraged as a family. So getting back in the car and driving everywhere was just a shift, but it's been great, and makes me happy to be actually in control of my schedule versus waiting on the MTA to arrive to get me from point A to point B. And then look, I think one of the things that we knew about, but we didn't, we knew it's kind of what we've already talked about, that we knew it would be here, but just the strength of the overall community and commitment that you feel in Nashville, alignment, and it was part of the reason I think that Nashville really resonated with us at AllianceBernstein in terms of making their choice, was the philanthropic commitment in this city, the rallying around issues and working to solve. Every city has challenges, and the commitment to continue to invest in the city between the government, the local and state government, the commitment of the philanthropic and the charities and the work that they do here, and the connection, and like not the lack of competitiveness. Like everyone wants everyone to win to help make Nashville a better place. And then the individuals who are really committed their time and energy. We've had a ton of volunteerism, even as we've been working from home, we've had people volunteering and giving their time in whatever format they can back into the community here at Nashville. And so we knew it was there. We could sense it, but it's been really powerful. When you think of the tornado earlier this year, and then the pandemic, just the way this city has really rallied to respond to those in need, I think it's been heartening to see. It's what we had hoped for, but to see it in person has been really, I think, reassuring, and in many ways, and reassuring and reaffirming about what attracted us to Nashville, and that it's still here.
Well, one of the things the World Affairs Council does is help students, college students, high school students who are interested in international affairs and thinking about careers in international affairs, sort of tell them there's a lot of different routes to get into working in that area. And can you just talk about that from your experiences? I mean, have you been assigned overseas as part of your work, or?
So I have not personally been assigned overseas at AllianceBernstein, but it is something that we do. And I certainly have spent a fair amount of time in my last couple of roles, from head of human capital, chief administrative officer, and as soon as I can get back on the road again in our international offices. And we do have people who have moved around, and it's something that we look to do in terms of rounding up people's experience sets, is the opportunity to start in our Nashville office or start in our London office. And as you're building your career, depending on your area of expertise, the opportunity to travel. So for example, right now, we're building out an office in Shanghai. The Chinese market has more recently opened up to foreign investment companies coming in to provide investment services. So we're really excited about that opportunity. And while we're hiring local there, we've also had people, actually someone who was here in Nashville for the last couple of years is moving in our technology group, is moving there to help build out the infrastructure of that office, right? So there is that kind of internal mobility, and it depends on where the opportunity set is and the skill set is. If you can totally take advantage of it, you might hear some London accents here in Nashville. Some of our UK people moving over to help do some of the infrastructural roles or sales roles. And so, look, I think that's one of the great parts about working for a global firm, and a global firm of our size, where it's 3,800 employees, you're a known entity, and so it does help create opportunities versus if you're in a really large bulge bracket or $10,000 or $100,000 firm. Those opportunities are there, but and maybe even more opportunities to potentially go. But there's that many more people vying for those seats, and so it's something that we look at, and we do think global experience. And as a global firm, we're very aware of our need to act globally and to think globally. And even though and it's something actually we continue to work on. We at times, I think, say we can still be too US centric, and we really intentionally try to make sure we're creating an environment where the global voices and that diversity of thought really can be brought into our decision making, because it is really powerful when you have those different perspectives and global perspectives, helping you make not only investment decisions, but just longer term strategic decisions about where your opportunities are.
How has the pandemic affected your business and operations?
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned, I think, working at home and other things.
Yeah, I mean, look, we were just talking about this earlier today. I mean, we are very aware of how fortunate we are to work in an industry that you can do remotely. We wouldn't have said you could in February of this year that this is how we would have been able to function, but we had invested a lot in our technology, in things like Zoom and mobility prior to the pandemic. And through our planning of many people here in Nashville, our technology and operations team here is incredibly strong. They were able to very quickly help mobilize us. We also have some offshoring in India, and they were incredibly proactive about ensuring that even our consultants in India had the ability, a laptop to be able to, if it hit India, to be able to go, and it obviously has at this point, to be able to go and work from home. And so we invested and spent a fair amount of time and energy in those early months, equipping us to be able to successfully pivot. And that's been great. What's been interesting also is it's actually, there's been a lot of feedback internally about how, in many ways, this kind of communication, the Zoom, right, the Brady Bunch, however you want to, the multiple squares, yeah, has really improved some of our global connectivity, because historically, you would have like a conference room of like 8 people sitting in one room in New York, 8 people in Nashville, and 4 people in London, and you'd be, whoever had the mic sort of, or whoever had the attention of the room, the conversation was sort of gravitated to that room, and it was hard to interject if you were from the outside. This is a great equalizer. Everyone is at the same size square on your computer screen, and it's created an intentionality around communication, I think, across the global teams that what we hear out of our people in Hong Kong and London is in San Antonio, that it's been really beneficial. And they hope that as we eventually start to get people back in the office, that we continue to run particularly global meetings in this kind of format, because it helps everyone be on the same playing field versus the in-person versus calling in.
Right. Do you see any other business changes that will come when the pandemic's over? That, I mean, that's a positive one.
Yeah.
Are there other things that you could visit in terms of how operations are done?
Yeah, look, I think that there's, like, if you had said to us in 2019 that we could have 3,800 people working remotely, we would, and still be as successful and have as good of a year where we gain market share and I think have done well, we would have been highly skeptical. And so now we have a workforce now that's shown that they, we're very much a kind of in the workplace culture. And now we have had, 38 weeks of being a work remotely or work from home culture. And I think you can anticipate as we get back into the office that we're not going to return to the ways we worked in 2019. And so there's a lot of energy going into what does, like, you'll hear reimagine work, like what does flexibility look like in the future for our kind of office. And I think you'll see more of it, and that will be, I think, very beneficial both to the employees, who oftentimes want, I mean, we've surveyed our employees, they want to be back in the office. They miss being there, but they don't necessarily want to be back 5 days a week, every single week, right? So having some flexibility to say, I'm going to be logging in from home, I have this happening, or just because you're doing work, there's some tasks, I think we're in the middle of review time. It's a lot easier to write a review at home than it was in the office, because you're not getting interrupted. You can have, concentrated time. But just if you think about the kind of work we do, whether you're researching a company or you're in a spreadsheet doing financial modeling, some of that is like independent, highly concentrated work time, focus time. And then other times you really want to be engaging in debate about socioeconomic policies, the impact of the stimulus, like what is it going to mean for our investments? How do you win a client? What is the service we should be providing? And many of those conversations we think can have a lot of innovation and collaboration, and they lend themselves to being in the office. So I think depending on the type of work you do, you're going to see some kind of hybrid approach that we're looking at and working and trying to figure out how to equip our managers to manage in both. In that world, they're really good at managing people in the office. They're really good now at managing people working from home. Now they're going to have to get really good at managing people in both locations. Right. And I think I think it creates some challenges, but it also creates some real opportunities from a productivity and talent perspective that we're aware of. And so it'll change the way I think people work. I think and I think leveraging technology and leveraging automation, like processes that you could automate, all became much more at the forefront. Like we were able to do in some of our digital engagement strategies with clients, things that we had talked about doing that probably would have slowly germinated and taken a year or two to do, just because of the reality of not being able to see people face to face, or the desire to self-service to get things in a timely manner, just accelerated the investment in those areas. And so I think you'll continue to see that technology continues to sort of be an enabler in terms of our engagement strategies with clients and investors.
And of course, when the pandemic is over, you also have the opportunity to see more of Nashville and go to the restaurants and all the things that you kind of got put on hold in the last 7 or 8 months.
I know we're very much looking, I'm like everyone. We're very looking, what's been wonderful about Nashville is just how beautiful it is, and the park systems. The amount of outdoor space that you have to be able, especially in good weather, but even, just think of the Thanksgiving weekend, what a stunning weekend it was. Right. Be able to be outside and enjoy all of all of it it's been a big differentiator personally for my family and I as we moved down here. But man, we're looking forward to the amenities. We're looking forward to all those great cultural activities that we were experiencing prior to the pandemic, and look forward to getting out there and enjoying all of that again. Great.
Well, we're thrilled that you're here. Pat, you have the questions, or
we have one from Carol, and we touched on it a little bit. Carol asked, you design your new office environment in a pre-COVID world. When you move into your office as a Fifth and Broadway, do you envision utilizing your new space differently? And I think there's a conversation about corporations and other people who use office suites downsizing because they like the idea of having less footprint to pay rent on. Is that something that?
Yeah, no, look, there's a lot of discussion around that, certainly in corporate America right now. I think we were very fortunate, and we had a vision as we were designing the headquarters down here that we wanted to create a space where people could come together and have this feel the concept of innovation. So the way the workspace is designed is there's multiple places where you can work. So people will have their desks, but there's huddle rooms and conference rooms and cafe spaces and library spaces and spaces where you can kind of do this different work. What we just talked about of why some work may be better to or conducive to working at home. We actually created spaces like that both in the office, knowing that people's days were often a mix of independent work and collaborative work. And so the design of the space overall, we haven't really changed from a capacity standpoint, and we took out a few desks just to open it up a little bit, but it's really, there was nothing meaningful that we changed in the design. And we talk about it all the time about like, what is there anything we should have thought about, or is there anything we should think about changing in the future? And from our perspective, the design that it's going to be, I can't wait. It's going to be so cool. It's going to be this great, modern, beautiful, technology-enabled space that I think is going to help create a connectivity with our employees in the office that's going to just be fantastic. And then it's going to be in the heart of Nashville, and that energy and creativity is, I think, when you're around that, I think it's like through osmosis, right? Like you breathe it in and it helps fuel what you're doing. And so we're excited about that. And we feel very fortunate that we were progressive, I think, in our floor plan decisions about we wanted work to feel like. That this doesn't change that. Like we still want people, when people are coming to the office, we want them to be motivated by the space that they're in. And I think that the design we have is going to continue to be able to do that even in a post-pandemic world.
Well, I was going to comment on the location, Broadway at Fifth, across from the Bridgestone and Tootsie's and Robert's Western World and all those kinds of places. That will certainly put the Nashville stamp on corporate culture, I would think.
And the new museum there is going to be there too.
Yeah.
Right.
It's in our lab.
It's a big deal.
It's going to be fantastic.
Well, we have one question from a Facebook Live viewer. How did other corporate relocations like Amazon and other newcomers set for the Nashville Yards complex and elsewhere affect your decision to pick Nashville? Was there any cross-corporate elbowing to get in quick?
No, I mean, so to be clear, we made the decision to move to Nashville before Amazon did. And look, we're excited that Amazon's here, quite frankly. I think the more investment that you have in the academic and education and training programs and the ability to really build a really strong technology footprint here in Nashville, I think will be beneficial for the city as a whole. And so we're good. I mean, we're glad they're not having hundreds of thousands. Like, we're glad that they have a good size office. It will certainly continue to make the competition for talent, I think, in Nashville. But it's also what attracts people to Nashville. And we're very different firms. We do very different things. So if you want to have a career in finance and really versus gosh, Amazon does so many different things. You know, and it's such a large entity that we think that our opportunity we provide for the talent pool in Nashville is still pretty distinctive. So we were happy to see him come, but we were happy we made the decision first.
Amanda in our Zoom room asks, Kate, welcome to Nashville, as well as the rest of AB. You mentioned being a global firm, but also have a familiar atmosphere. Aside from the layout of the office, how are you planning to foster connection between different business units as well as with the local government and community? Any plans for partnerships?
Yeah, look, we've had a very intentional, that is a great question. And there's a lot of intentionality that goes into what we're trying to do here. So one, you know, we have I won't get the number exactly right, but I think we already have AB employees around 50 different charity boards, philanthropy boards here. So we're a very giving organization, and we've encouraged our employee base, both through volunteering their time and from a civic duty perspective, to get engaged in their community, because we do think that creates important connective ties to the community you operate in, and is beneficial both to the firm and ideally gives back to the community that we work in. And then look, one of the things that attracted us to Nashville was the partnership among the companies here to say we want to help invest in the city of Nashville, and I think so between that and be involved with the city council, I mean, there's just so many opportunities, I think, for us and we've built relationships, I think, in the beginning, and that we can hope to continue to strengthen over our time here, so that we can be a vibrant member of the overall Nashville community in all areas.
Jim Shepard asks, as you have been building out your team here in Nashville by adding people new to AB, how are you introducing them to the AB culture and practices in this remote work environment we're in today?
I like the second part of that question, because I was about to say, well, it was a lot easier prior to the pandemic. Because I think we have an onboarding program that takes you not only through the history of the firm and what we do, but it also connected you to various organizations. And in Nashville, especially when we were in person, what was great is we were running sessions on a biweekly basis of where you could come in here. Carl Sprules talk about technology, and then you could go and hear Jim Lip talk about finance, and you could just opt in, so that you always had this constant sort of connectivity and learning. And then we did, like, one of the things around community events is it helps bring people together across different business functions to get to know each other. And so there was a lot of programming in person that worked really well. To connect both the people who moved down to New York, who could help bring the culture with us, as well as connecting all of the new employees. We did a lot of new employee onboarding, monthly town halls, all of it was in person. And so it felt very intuitive and natural. Shifting it to remote, and one is we did slow down hiring, and we stopped hiring for a couple of months as we tried to just get comfortable again working. We did modest hiring, I should say. We didn't stop, but we did very modest hiring. We slowed down the plans considerably, as we just said, let's just make sure everyone who's new and everyone who is here understands what we need to deliver for our clients, and let's just really focus on, like, the highest quality execution that we can do. Probably around June or July, we said, okay, we're good. We have it up and running again, or we're running well. And we want to get our recruiting up and running again, and really get back into the market. And so many of the programs we were doing in office, we've tried to do remote. And so there's these different events that people can still opt into, we call them chat and snacks, and they can go and hear, in this environment, about the different areas of the organizations. We're also actually going to roll out some buddy programs into the next year, and informal mentoring, because we recognize that it's just more challenging for new employees. They know their teams really well. They get to know their teams really well through the day-to-day environment, but for them to get to know the firm, and one of the great parts about being in office is that it just, especially because it was an open floor plan, is it really conveyed the non-hierarchical aspect of our firm, which is that we're all equally accessible all the time. And that doesn't feel the same way when you have to call someone on Zoom or set up the formality of Zoom diminishes that feeling of accessibility. So we're really going to focus, and we've been trying to get more of those access points so that new joiners in the organization get to know people really more broadly across the firm and in senior management, to have that same level of accessibility going forward. But a lot of just the materials and programming and just essentially went to this webinars in this kind of format.
Last question from Facebook Live. I don't know if this is somebody looking for a stock tip, but the question is, the market seemed to perk up with the vaccines announcements. Our industry forecast for 2021 looking for breakout of pent-up demand, or should we expect a slower recovery?
I'm going to pass on opining my personal opinion on the markets. It's not, we don't have a corporate outlook that I would say. We have a lot of debate internally about what 2021, look, that's the great part about diversity of thought. And if you're paying attention to the markets right now, I do think, look, I think the vaccine and the quicker we can get people back to a vibrant economy and more people back out to work is all beneficial for it. There's certainly likely some pent up demand in various areas.
Well, we'll send back the answer that they should get an account with AllianceBernstein.
But yeah, they should. I have a great financial advisor that I'll hook you up with to understand your risk profile and where you might want to do your asset allocation strategy going into 21.
Karl, maybe last comments from you and Kate, and then I'll close it up.
No, I just, I think it's great that you're here, and I'm glad that things have gone well so far. And I think the things you talked about, there's a kind of Nashville strengths. I see Nashville's future really is dependent upon attracting talent. Your AB is going to be a big part in attracting talent to the city. And, think of the different energy that's going to be created by the other companies that have come here. You're all here. That's going to be great. I think your recognition of the city's being welcoming, a tolerant city, a city that embraces diversity is fantastic. And I think, being involved at the sophisticated level you all are helps us in terms of becoming more and more of a technology city, which I see as the future. But it is a big deal that you're all here. It really is. And we're thrilled and wish you all the best. And if anything we could do to ever help you or anybody at AB with questions about Nashville or anything else, just let us know.
Well, thank you for all of those kind words. But like I said, we're really thrilled to be here. And I think AB has a great future. And I think AB has a great future, particularly in Nashville. And Nashville has a great future. And so we're just happy to be a part of it.
Great. Thanks. I would mention that I think it's a powerful message about the global reach that Nashville has. And we've occasionally struggled to get the word out about how important it is to know what's going on in the world. But this program, Global Nashville with Karl Dean, and other global aspects of Nashville, we like to inform people about it. And this was really a great opportunity to share a story about a leading business like AllianceBernstein coming here and bringing an international reputation to town. And also we appreciate the involvement in the community. It's been tough times for nonprofits, and we're all happy to have people who are concerned about what's going on in the community. So thank you very much, Kate Burke from AllianceBernstein, for being with us tonight. Mayor Dean, thank you, sir, for being with us for another evening. This is a little longer ago than typical, but I think we covered a lot of ground, and it was a great program. So thank you very much, everybody, and please have a great evening.